I am Ray, and this is going to save you years of your peace of mind. And this is by realizing that most people, they're just silly gooses. Now, this video is going to be a little bit dangerous, so hold on to your butt, or plural butts. And don't worry, I'm here. What does it mean that most people are silly? It means that most people have no idea what they're talking about. And even Socrates, he said it as well. He said, I know nothing, but he was wise. Most people are not wise. And this is something I've learned since being on social media. And it's that everyone's got their silly little beliefs and their silly little opinions of what they think is true. And on your journey in this life, there's going to be this, phase where you're listening to the world, you're listening to people, you're listening to the people around you telling you, hey, this is the truth. You're listening to me. But the question is, how much do you just stand in your own truth rather than paying attention to what everyone else believes? Because what everyone else thinks is irrelevant. Most of what everyone thinks is a waste of time. And two, nobody even knows themselves. So people who don't even know who they are telling you how to live your life, telling you you should do this or you should do that. But what good is their opinions or their beliefs? They don't even know who they are. You realize that most people are just like little babies, just completely ignorant to reality. That doesn't mean that people don't have life experiences and things that they've gone through and their own story. Everybody does. The point I'm trying to make is, if you built the whole foundation of your life on an illusion, what is it that you know? You have to question everything. If the very root of everything is not as you thought it was, well, then everything that comes after has to be, looked at. So what's helped me a lot is realizing that, people don't know what they're talking about. They think they know what they're talking about. They don't. And they try to get you to believe in what they believe because they have a biological imperative to get you to believe what they believe. And this goes for every aspect of our life. Someone might say, hey, go to college. You should do this. You should do this. This is good. This is the right thing for you. And maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But we get pressured into doing things that we're not really aligned with all the time because we allow other people's ideas to influence us. The reason this is dangerous is because perhaps you, for the first time, are going to have to stand in your own authority. Claim your own power and say, this is who I am. This is what I am. And you're going to realize that the so-called experts in the world, they don't know what they're talking about either. Because they don't know who they are either. So we're living in a world where people are living in ignorance. They're living in darkness. And so what is it? It's just the blind leading the blind. That's why you need some crazy people every once in a while who see the truth to wake you up out of that hypnosis, out of that dream. Otherwise, it's very convincing. You want to learn how to stand up on your own 2 feet, even against all the human beings in the world, and say, this is how I see things. And you got to be okay with, going against the mainstream. And you see, it's natural to want to kind of get into arguments with people or debate people about certain things, certain beliefs, certain opinions. But what you find is that nobody cares. Nobody cares about what you believe. Most people just want you to agree with them or shut up and not say anything. And if you can find someone you can actually have a debate with that's productive, well then congratulations. That's just not most people. Most people just believe I'm right. Let me prove that I'm right. But that's not very wise. To really try to prove that you're right means there's a little bit of insecurity. I have to show you that what I think is the truth. I have to tell you because I know the truth. I do. And you don't. So I got to tell you. But the truth speaks for itself. The truth is found in silence. True power does not have to explain itself to anybody. And this is something to keep in mind. When you find yourself kind of getting into arguments with people online, on YouTube, about whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same nonsense that people have going on. Whether it's holy nonsense and you're talking about spirituality or religion, or it's just normal, plain old garbage like doom scrolling, or what was on the news yesterday, or football. Nothing against footballs, but, if you watch and understand what I'm about to show you, You will be the most advanced person in every room. The most important thing for you to do, you want to tap into the inner silence, the inner presence within you. In this present moment, there is an inner spaciousness within you. If you focus your awareness onto your body, you will find that there's an inner space. And that inner space is the same space as the outer space. Wow. And if you didn't know this, the radiance of space, meaning you call it its fragrance, its aroma, is silence and is peace. That's why people say peace and quiet. Peace and quiet go together. And they go with space. They're all connected. They're all one. So where there is space, there is silence. And there is peace. And you know this. You don't need to believe. You just need to experience it. Go out to the forest for a few days. Tell me if you don't find peace. So this inner spaciousness, I call it your safe space. Once you find it, and then you pay attention to it, this safe space frees you from suffering because it's the source of peace, and you can't be suffering and be at peace at the same time. So when you tap into the source of peace, there is no more suffering. But the reason that we don't experience the peace is because we're too busy focusing on noise. You see, the ground from which you exist determines the fruits that you have. It's like the soil that you're living in. Is it got nutrients or has it got no nutrients? So for example, someone who is rooted in the inner presence, the inner spaciousness within them, that is their own radiance. They are rooted in truth, and therefore their words are more reliable. But the more you have built the foundation of your life on sand, the less reliable your words are. And that is everybody. So when you look at someone and you hear them talk, you have to ask yourself, where are they coming from? What is their level of consciousness? Because some people are just plain stupid. Some people have good hearts, but are just ignorant. What matters is the intentions from which they act and live their life. But even if you have good intentions, you still need to be rooted in the truth. So here's the illusion that everyone's talking about, right? Or at least that I talk about. Everyone's living in an illusionary world, like a dream world, that doesn't actually exist. But we believe it to be the only thing that exists, the main thing that exists. And that is what people call the real world. And for someone living in the real world, they built the foundation of their life on ego. What does this mean? It means that everything that you experience in this life is centered around identity. So with that identity orbits all of these different stories, all of these different opinions and beliefs about what you think the truth is. So for example, take a religious person. I identify as this religion. My whole foundation of my reality is based on these stories and these ideas and these beliefs that I tell myself. That I say, this is what I think the truth is. The only problem is, beliefs are always changing. And what is always changing is like building your house on sand. All it takes is for one piece of information to permanently change the way you see the world forever. If an atheist so hardcore finds a little sliver of evidence of God, well, guess what? That atheist who built the entire foundation of his life on the stories about who they believed they were, it's all washed away now. Now you're going to have an existential crisis and you got to rebuild. This is like the story of the three little pigs. It's the whole thing. The moral of the story is build your house out of something that's not going to fall down in like 5 seconds. And anything that is built from the ego will be destroyed, no matter what. Everyone has a bad day coming for them. Maybe a good day. Because once you realize that the ego and its stories and its fantasies are not real, you're either going to be greatly disappointed or greatly relieved. And the thing is, if you just inquired into the nature of who you are, everything that you believe to be true would be proven wrong. Not by me, by your own self. Because if I right now say, I'm a man, And I surround my life about being a man. Everything's about being masculine, doing masculine things. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. But it's all rooted in this identity of who I believe I am. But if I were to close my eyes and not move my hands at all, and try to find myself as a man, if I stop speaking, where am I as man? It takes like 60 seconds at most to realize that everything you believed was wrong. Because no matter how hard you try, you say, I'm a man or I'm a woman. You close your eyes, you try to find yourself as man or as woman. You'll be there forever. You will never find it. You say, I am a Christian or a Buddhist or a Hindu or an atheist or a Muslim. You close your eyes. Where are these things? Where am I as my religion? It does not exist. It has never existed other than in a memory in your mind. So that when you wake up and you look in the mirror, you are reminded, oh yes, this is who I am. I am a man or a woman. This is what I believe. This is what I do for work. This is what I think. These are my opinions. The ego is a construct of memory and sense data. So you receive sense data and then you remember it. So we're living our life in the past from memory, even though we think we're living in the present moment. Because if I look in my mirror and I say, hey, this is who you are. Yes, this is who you are. That's already a thought that's been passed. It's not fresh. It's not new. Therefore, I am living in ignorance. I'm living in ignorance because what I believe to be true just is not. And this is the kind of thing I want to get across. Because we have to understand that the egos of the world are very interested in being right. So they will convince you of their stories. But if you are led by someone else who is led by their ego, you will be led astray. Only those who are the embodiment of truth will not lead you astray. And this is really dangerous in religious circles. Well, because religious people have been killing each other since the beginning of time, chopping each other's heads off. Why? Because the ego says, I'm right and you're wrong. And if you want to say something about that, well, then catch me outside. How about that? The more you can tap into your inner presence, the inner spaciousness within you, the inner silence, the eternal present moment, the more you focus on the eternal, the more you build the foundation of your life on solid ground. So that when you hear people's ignorance, you can kind of just wash it away. Like somebody accidentally pooped on the sidewalk. Well, just get your pressure washer and wash it off. And then spray them. Get out of here, silly people. Pooping on my sidewalk? How dare you? But if you yourself are living from ego, you're going to resonate with other egos. It's going to keep you stuck. And you know that's you if you can't trust and rely on your own judgment. If you can't rely on your own judgment, well, it's a good first step. If you're going to say, I can't rely on my judgment, well then also realize you can't rely on other people's judgments either. You have to tap into the truth within your own self if you want to trust your own judgment. It's like if you're religious, right? If you claim a religious identity, if you haven't tapped into the truth within yourself, all you can do is manipulate the teachings and the message of your religion. That's all you can do. Because if you're not tapped into the truth within yourself, you don't know the truth when it's there. And you see this happen all the time. You feel it with religious people, especially when they're standing on the streets and shouting at you with megaphones. You can feel the ego. It's so obvious. It's not even a question. You're like, oh, you're just living from ego. You probably should get spanked. It's like you don't have anything to do with trying to actually make the world a better place, if that's a thing. You always know a religious person is living from ego. It's because they are living from this kind of dual mindset, duality. What does that mean? So the ego creates the sense of separation. It gives us an individual identity that we can say, okay, yes, this is me. It's a collection of, like if the ego was a metal ball, imagine the stories and the opinions and the beliefs and all the other mind stuff is like other metal objects that, are attracted to that metal ball. And with that sense of separation, now we are able to judge and reflect. So I can judge you and reflect, ping off of you back to me. This is me, this is my collection of stuff. That is you, that is your collection of stuff. now I'm analyzing and judging what is the difference between my stuff and your stuff. So anyone who's trapped in ego always plays the same exact game. I am right and you are wrong. So I have to get you to believe what I believe because I am right and you are wrong. Any judgment, any fighting or debating or arguments with other religions, with other people, really about anything, that's ego. And this is kind of why the spiritual path is tough, because you have to become the leader. In every situation, you become like the only adult in the room, so you're responsible for those situations. Because living from ego is like being a little child that doesn't know anything, living in complete ignorance. But once you tap into the truth, well, now without even trying, you can guide people back to the truth. Whereas, you got so many people coming from ego trying to save other people, trying to help other people, but, they're drowning themselves. And the ego loves to do that. It loves to help people, loves to save people, because it gets to feel like I'm up here, I'm a helper, and you're down there. You need my help. Gives you a sense of self-importance. And so you can begin seeing these traps all the time of the ego. And when you're dealing with someone coming from ego, it's not necessarily that you have to disregard everything they say, just most of it. And you try to find a little bit of truth that shines forth, because otherwise they have nothing to show you. They have nothing to teach you. What are they going to teach you? How to be a better ego? They sure will try, because other egos need others to reaffirm what they believe, so they could feel like, oh, okay, yes, I know the truth. The ego also creates kind of that tribal mentality. So it makes you feel like you're a part of something. It reaffirms your beliefs and your opinions and the ways you think about things. So there's more safety, there's more certainty. And one can say, yes, I know the truth because we know the truth. Another trap. First and most important thing, find the inner spaciousness within you. If the ego is person, meaning you're living your life as a person, an individual entity, doing things with all of these stories and beliefs, you go from living that way to living as presence, of just being in the moment. Because no matter what you do, messing about down here, you are messing about at the temporary and the changing. But once you start focusing up here, you're tapping into the eternal. The truth is eternal. Ignorance is less eternal, more relative. So seek this first, because you can find it, and you will tap into the everlasting peace that is already within you. That which the ego perpetually steals from you through its judgments and its, mind garbage. So peace is the default state, like clear, still water. But when the waters of your mind are disturbed by your ego's nonsense, the peace is gone. It stimulates the waters, there's no more stillness. So there's this feeling of temporary separation from peace. And the only root cause is our ego. Our tendency to be attached to our mind stuff. That's all it is. And you're living in ego if you get triggered. Now you might say, well, doesn't everyone get triggered once in a while? Yes, everyone gets triggered because everyone's living from ego. If you get triggered, it means you're attached. And if you get attached, it means you're not seeing life clearly. If you're ever curious to know whether or not your beliefs are right or wrong, all you have to do is ask yourself, if somebody came along and blatantly contradicted my beliefs and said, no, this is the truth, you're wrong, how triggered would you get? Would you get a little bit triggered? Or a lot of it triggered? And how often? Because it's not that big of a deal if you get triggered every once in a while, but if you're getting triggered on repeat, or, predictably, then it means that you're looking through life through this little keyhole. You're trying to make a relative truth into an absolute truth. Because the ego is fundamentally insecure, it has to fight anyone or anything that isn't aligned with it. It's really important to understand our human bias, because you got to know what ideas and which thoughts and which people you allow into your mind, that you allow to influence you. And if you aren't aware of your own human misjudgments, then it can be easy to fall for these mind traps. Let's take a religious person because it's just such an easy example. It's very obvious. So here's the deal. Every human being, we exist in this box. Most of us, at least. And that box is mind. You can call it ego. Doesn't matter. And this wall is made up of the stories you tell yourself, your opinions, your beliefs, all of your mind stuff, right? Now, on one level, this little box right here provides us a sense of safety. Why? Because you, as the ego, need to feel like you know. Because the known is safety. The known is safety, security, order. The known is like a fire. You're standing around a campfire. There's a big dark forest around you. That is the chaos. That is the darkness. The little order, the little known that you have is the light. So you're surrounded by this little light, like a torch, and you're going through life like this. And if somebody comes along and starts poking at this box, meaning poking you, triggering your beliefs and your opinions and your stories, well then that's like someone trying to take away that torch from you. You can't take away my torch, friend. I'm going to smack you with it. And that is why people react violently to their beliefs being questioned, to their ideas being threatened. And you see it. And that's why people have been killing each other over religion, over politics, over sports since the beginning of time. Because when you attack those beliefs and those opinions and those stories, you're not just attacking those things. You're attacking them. You're attacking the ego. Because the ego feeds on those stories. And if the individual were to come and see that those stories are not real, they're not true, the safety box would fall away and you would be plunged into the ocean of chaos where you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's true. And that's called an existential crisis. And that happens to a lot of the times, especially to men in their midlife. Why? Why do a lot of men have a midlife crisis? Why is that a thing? It's because you spend your whole life building the foundation of everything on this assumption that you are this person and that these stories are accurate and your beliefs are true and your opinions are right. But they were just assumptions. We believe them to be true. But there's a whole different game going on here. We're not here to find the truth. We're here to feel safe. We're here to feel like we know something. That's why you see egos, they always know everything. So for the religious person, the religious philosophy is most often not about God. It's about survival. And most people would have a hard time facing this in themselves because they'd have to realize that they're not as spiritual as they think. This religion, this framework for seeing the world, this philosophy, is keeping us afloat. It's giving us guidance to learn how to live, to know how to live without dying and being consumed by the all-consuming chaos, the void. So that's why people are so defensive when it comes to their beliefs, because you're threatening their very survival. This is the kind of human bias we have to pay attention to, because what will happen is that, well, the adult will also indoctrinate their children into the same thing. Because our survival instinct isn't just for ourselves, it's for our offspring as well. So you'll see how, our parents will condition us with fear and survival and negativity because they want us to be safe. And it's hard to, realize that your parents are playing that game because you want to believe that your parents have your best interest in mind. And they do. But chances are they're just living from survival and they want you to live from survival as well. And you can't fall into that trap, which is why you have to begin trusting your own judgment. Growing up means realizing that your judgment and your parents' judgment are equal now. And in fact, your parents might not even know more than you. So we grow up as little children believing our parents are the best in the world, and then one day we wake up and realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm on the same level now. I can't rely on anyone. I can't rely on the experts. I can't rely on, any kind of human being that's living from ego. Because even though people living from ego can still express the truth, the chances that they're going to lead you astray are very high. If you really want to be religious, follow those who have realized their true nature, because they are the embodiment of the truth. Someone like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna, it doesn't matter. Follow what they teach. Don't follow the people who follow them, because you're just diluting the truth. That's why for me, when it comes to something like the Bible, well, I trust wholeheartedly in the words and teachings of Jesus, not so certain about everyone else. Why is that? Because if you're living from ego, which everyone is, when you bring the truth to the table, you're also going to bring all of this garbage with you. All of your attachments, all of your beliefs, all of your opinions. You're going to corrupt the message, no matter what you do. Because reality is being filtered through your mind. So whatever information you have going on in your mind is going to influence everything that you express. And it's going to influence everything that you receive. It corrupts the information, it corrupts the data, and that's why you can't trust people living from ego, even if they have a good heart or good intentions. Because they just don't know. And it's really hard because you might, have a parent who really has a strong identity about being a parent. Like, I am a father or I'm a mother. This is my life. This is who I am. And it's not that that's bad, but you have to understand the bias that will happen. That everything that they do will be filtered through this identity. And they will be attached to that identity, and they will be attached to the stories that they tell themselves about that identity. And all of that mind stuff is going to pollute their message, so you're going to have to do some digging. Try to find the gold in all of that dirt. And that goes for any identity about anything, especially being religious. And again, the ego's imperative is to get other egos to get in this box with them, so they can feel even more safe. It's all about survival, not about God. Because why do we follow God? Because we think it's going to be best for our survival. And that the absence of God will be very bad for our survival. And this is the kind of trap that happens when you're so attached to your identity as this kind of person or that kind of person. Your mind, or I should say your brain, has a selective focus, meaning your mind only focuses on the information that reaffirms the safety box, and it ignores everything else. And that is why you can provide someone with direct evidence of something that conflicts with their beliefs, and they will be unable to see it as if it doesn't exist, as if it's literally invisible. Because if their mind were to receive that information, it would threaten this safety box. It's better to live in a fake reality that's safe than it is to live in the real world that is dangerous. At least that's what we subconsciously believe. What does this mean? It means we would rather believe in illusion, something that is not true, and believe it to be true. Pretend that it's true, over ever having to face the actual truth. And of course it makes sense, because the truth is hard. The truth is that big storm that comes down and blows down your house. That's the truth. And the truth is also, well, how solid is your house? Because you can pretend you believe the truth all you want, but then life happens and then you're suddenly questioning everything. Or you can be rooted in truth, and then when life happens in difficult ways, when the winter of life comes for us all, you will be unshaken. Why? Because you're rooted in truth. And you're not worried about it. You're not living from survival anymore. What you want to do is you want to become familiar with the ego. You want to know what it feels like. And once you start recognizing the pattern, it becomes easy. So the next time you encounter someone who is living from ego, you can take what they say with a grain of salt, but you kind of have to realize that they're just like a little baby who knows nothing. Not that you're trying to be better than them or wiser than them, but it's just the fact. Ego, if you want to understand ego, just look at a 2-year-old. I want this and I want it now. Me, 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 me. Little king, little queen. Demanding their reality be a certain way. And you can't tell them nothing. But when you transcend the ego and you tap into the self, the innermost core of your being, you become the only adult. Why is this? Because ego consciousness is the same consciousness as big consciousness, as the infinite ocean of God. The only difference is ego is just a little piece, like a little chunk. So it's a limited state of consciousness. And when you tap into the true self, it's just infinitely greater and more vast than the ego. Living in ego is like living in darkness. But when you tap in to your true nature as the self, you're effortlessly living in truth. Things make sense. You don't have the same questions as you did down here. You're not confused anymore. That's one of the big things that changes when you go from living from ego to just being present. So like a lot of the questions that you have just start falling away. Confusion only exists when you're living in ignorance. But when you're living in truth, confusion doesn't happen as much. And even if you are confused, shortly after, the answers come to you. This is a big thing too, because you see people. People are confused. People don't know what's going on. How do I live my life? And some people find success in certain areas, and so they teach others about how to be successful in those areas. But how many people are successful at life itself? On all fronts. So the big thing is, once you realize someone is living from ego, and if you don't know, they are, we can realize the mess that they're coming from. We realize their bias. And that can give us a little bit of relief in realizing that, we don't have to argue with them. We don't have to we don't have to be entangled with their stuff. And in fact, don't. Because if you don't realize that it's a mistake to get entangled with an ego about anything, then you will do it and waste your time and, frustrate yourself. Because you will try, probably with good intentions, to work with that individual, to come to some agreement, to some better future. But if they're living from ego, if they're attached to it, that's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. You're just spinning your wheels because the ego is hell-bent on reaffirming the safety box, and it will do whatever it takes to get you in there as well. So on the surface, they might be approaching the situation from a certain framework, like, I'm helping you. I want the best for you. But if you can pay attention, you'll see it's just this underlying unconscious game that most people aren't aware of. I need to feel safe, so I need to make other people believe in what I believe, so I feel more safe. That is why people fall into these groups of categories. I am this kind of person, I am that kind of person, because being around other people of the same type makes us feel like we're on the right path. It makes us feel like we know. And human beings love that known, because known and safety is life. Around that campfire, you're alive, but you start straying from that campfire, and there's no guarantee that you won't get eaten by Bigfoot, or simply by someone with big feet. It can happen. So we will fight tooth and nail and kill anyone who comes to threaten our safety prison. And you'll see this too. You might have a good heart and you want to help people. You say, hey friend, come to me. I can see how your beliefs and your opinions and the way you're thinking is creating suffering from you. How about you come over here? You try to give someone advice. You try to tell someone, hey, you should probably do this. This will help you. And what do they respond with? They respond with, no, I'm going to do the opposite of what you say. And that's what people don't realize about relationships, especially with men, because we kind of have the savior complex thing going on. So when you're attached to your ego about, okay, this is my friend, or this is my family member, this is someone I love, and I can see them going down a wrong path or whatever, making a mistake, whatever. So I, with my infinite wisdom, am going to go help that person. I'm going to go help you. I'm going to go talk to you, try to get you to set you straight, get you to see things clearly. And all of this mind stuff, all of these intentions, you bring to the situation, and every word that you speak is being filtered through those intentions. So you got to be very careful about the energy from which you approach a situation, because that will determine whether or not you get the result that you want. For example, you can say with your lips that you want to help that person all you want, but if in your interaction with them all they do is push you away, well then what you wanted isn't what you said. You believe the results, or should I say the results are a reflection of what you believe. And this is why people get confused. It's like, I tried to help that person. I tried to do the best that I could. Why didn't they listen to me? Why weren't they listening to what I say? I know I can help them. If they just listened to me, they wouldn't be in this mess. Never realizing that the message never got across because it was polluted and corrupted by the ego. When you bring the energy of, I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to change you, because right now I'm judging you as your life isn't going good. I want your life to go better. I want this for you. I want that for you. I want to help you. All of this different mind stuff influences every word that you speak, and it messes with your energy. Because you're projecting onto that person all kinds of garbage that is not true. And that is why they reject you. That is why they don't listen to you. That is why they do the opposite of what you say. Because you don't realize that the energy that you're giving off is what is causing that to happen. Because think about it, it's so practical. If I'm judging you as someone who's not doing that good in life, well, how's that going to make you feel? I'm talking to you, emphasizing the fact that you're wrong. You're wrong with something, and I'm here to tell you how to do it right. What's that going to make you feel? It's going to make you feel bad. It's going to shut you down. It's going to make you put your walls up. Like, who are you to tell me that I'm wrong? And that, even though that's pride, still, there's a good point. Because we assume that we know what is right because of our experiences. And therefore we assume we know what's right for others. And it's just not true. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't know what is right for that other person because you don't know that other person, because you don't even know yourself. All we have is some imaginary idea of who we believe that person is. It's not real. And that is what betrayal is as well. You ever been betrayed? Well, this is what happened. You, as the ego, had an imaginary idea of who that person was. But they were like that the whole time. You just didn't know that they were like that. You weren't aware of that. But then eventually, because the truth makes itself manifest, when you finally discover who that person is, you feel betrayed. You feel like that person betrayed you. But the fact is that you were betrayed by nothing other than your own imagination. You betrayed yourself. That is why there is a surprise element. I thought life was this way, but life was not that way. Life was very much different than what I thought. And this is the trap I want you to be aware of, is the ego illusion. We go through life assuming everything. Every single person you know in this life, you have received sense data, evidence of their past behaviors, of the way they operate, of the way they think. And with all of that sense data, you come to a generalized conclusion that allows you to say, oh, okay, I know who that person is. And we have to do that so that we can feel safe. Because if I were to be exposed to the truth, I would never feel safe. Because you as a human being have billions and billions and billions of different variables that come together to make you as a unique individual. And 99% of that information I am not aware of. So if I were to be exposed to the actual reality, well, I couldn't ever know who you are. So in order to feel safe, we assume. But through that assumption, we're living in ignorance. One of the things that helps greatly is stop having assumptions about who people are. Just meet them in the present moment as they are right now. No past, no history, like you've never met this person before in your life. Because if you are coming from memories of the past, you're going to project onto that person an illusion that's not real. And you're going to be disappointed when you realize the person was not who you thought they were. Think about how much peace that's going to save you. You stop assuming people are a certain way, so you stop getting betrayed by your own imagination. You can meet people for who they really are for the first time. Because everyone's coming from ego. I'm just a little ego talking to another little ego. We're two little egos making a mess. But how wonderful it is for an ego to be in the presence of someone who has discovered the truth. The ego is either going to hate you or it's going to love you. It's going to hate you because you threaten its very existence. So it's going to fight you. And it's going to love you in the sense of someone who is open to finding the truth. You will provide for them a peace that they have never known. A presence that is relaxing, that makes people feel comfortable, it makes people feel good, it makes people remember what they've lost, what the ego has stolen from them. That is your joy, your peace, your love, your abundance, your truth. And you traded it all for mind stuff, fantasies. You see what happens when you stop living from ego. This safety box, which was once like a raft on the ocean of life. And you probably can see why we fight to death to keep this raft alive, because you don't want to be swimming in the ocean with no raft. But what you find is that if you seek the truth, one day you will discover that you are the ocean. And that is what happens. The safety box is removed and you are free. First the prison walls disappear, and then you finally disappear. And you become the whole ocean. Like if you're swimming upstream a river, there is you and there is the river. You're swimming upstream. But if you let go and you just go with the flow, you and the river become one. After you discover the truth, you lose the need for frameworks. You lose the need for religion. You lose the need for beliefs and opinions. It doesn't mean anything to you anymore, because they were never useful in the first place. If you really think about it, beliefs are a waste of time, because at any moment your beliefs can change. So it doesn't make any sense to build your life on these beliefs. There is no certain way that you have to be. There's no rules. There's no long list of should and should nots. If I do this, then I'm a good person. But if I don't do this, then I'm messing up. I'm not being good. I have to follow these rules. If I don't follow the rules, then I'm not being good enough. All of that stuff becomes irrelevant. Because you can see it's just change. It's just different flavors of chains that you wear. Some people are addicted to temporary pleasures of the world, and they think that, this is the answer, is the temporary pleasures. And those are just like, rusty iron chains. But some people get addicted to religion. And they say, yes, this is the way. And they subject themselves to these different frameworks and these different systems as vehicles to God. But eventually you will see that these are just another set of chains. Golden chains of morality. You're trying too hard to be good. Still ego. The ego is trying really hard to be good. And if it doesn't do good, then it's going to be filled with shame and guilt. That's why it's chains. You're trying too hard to be a religious good person. Well, guess what? There are parts of you that are not religious and good. You have millions, hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary instinct. They don't care about your silly little moral belief systems. And so what do? Do you sacrifice the truth about yourself for your religious beliefs? Do you say, oh, well, my body is a prison. My body wants to take me away from God. My body wants to just indulge in temporary pleasures and lust and money and greed and all of these things, and that's not godly. That's not good. That's a psychological drama that people get caught into because of their religious identities or moral identity in general. I am a good person, therefore a good person does these things, and a good person does not do those things. So you trap yourself in this system, this way of being, in which you cannot break it. Because if you break it, well then, you're betraying yourself. But the fact is, you will betray yourself. So you're really just allowing shame and guilt to come into your life. Not because you deserve it, but because it's of your identity. Like, think about someone who works out all the time, who's got a strong identity about going to the gym and being that kind of person. If one day they don't feel like going to the gym and then they follow that voice, they're probably going to feel a little bit of guilt for skipping the gym. Why? Because that's their identity. I am someone who goes to the gym. Oh, I skipped the gym? I betrayed myself. You see? But think about how many people who don't feel any guilt for not going to the gym at all. Ever. Plenty of people don't feel any guilt at all. Why? Because they don't have an identity around going to the gym. But this is the secret to enlightenment. Is that once you become enlightened, you have no identity that you're attached to. So whether you go to the gym and have a great workout, or whether or not you stay home and eat Cheetos all day, it's not that big of a difference. On the surface level, yes, one decision is right, the other decision is wrong. But because you're no longer living from ego, there is no point of reference to judge those experiences. I mean, on the surface, okay, you can say, oh, well, I probably shouldn't stay home and eat Cheetos all day. But you're not attached to the one who eats the Cheetos. You're not attached to the one who goes to the gym. And you're not attached to the one who worships God. And you're not attached to any single ego identity that you have. And that is freedom. Because you're no longer getting pulled around by your thoughts or your experiences. But so long as you're living from ego, it's impossible. Because with identity comes interest. There's a billion different things that the ego identity wants. All of these long lists of desires. And all of this long list of things it wants to avoid. Now there's different levels of consciousness. So one person might just want all the temporary pleasures of the world, and then another person might want just God, just a religion. Which is great. Having holy thoughts is better than having unholy thoughts. But what I'm saying is, well, eventually, you should go all the way. So there's different levels of this journey, of the spiritual journey. And what I've experienced is that at the end, after a certain point, none of this stuff makes sense anymore. It doesn't make sense to keep it. Because you can feel it weighing you down. You can feel it keeping you stuck in ignorance. Why is this? Because the more mind stuff you have in your brain, the more reality is being filtered and influenced by your mind stuff. But the more your mind is empty, the more there's just clear communication. You're receiving life clearly, and you're expressing life clearly. So you become the embodiment of the truth, simply because you have removed the ignorance. You have to remove the filters, and in order to remove the filters, you have to remove the frameworks. But most people never pass this on the spiritual path because that animal instinct is too strong. It will not allow you to throw away the life raft unless you really have that strong desire. That desire to be free. That desire to stop being a slave to concepts. To stop putting conditions on your love, peace, joy, and abundance. This is why you get crazy people like Osho sometimes. Because the people who discover this truth, they are serious rebels. And that is why they're not seen very kindly upon sometimes. Because the egos of the world, they will fight tooth and claw to keep their way of living alive. But me, for instance, I'm not here to give you a bunch of rules to follow. I'm here to tell you, hey, burn the rules. Be free. Stop enslaving yourself to imaginary concepts that you just kind of are taking on belief. But discover the truth within your own self. And what happens is that you stop planning so much. You stop trying to control life. And you just allow life to unfold spontaneously. So there's no you getting in the way, trying to force outcomes. But there is just life. There's just the pure flow. And the more you can allow that pure flow, the more powerful you are. Just look at someone like Jesus or like the Buddha. Both are more famous now than they have ever been. I mean, there are more people who follow Jesus right now than there were people alive on the planet when Jesus was alive. Now, how does that work? Why are most people forgotten in this life? But some people randomly are remembered thousands and thousands of years in the future. What is it? What is it that changes? It's because in a world living in darkness, the light is obvious. The only reason you can see the stars in the sky is because the background is black. And it is the biggest and brightest stars that are most easily seen, even if they're really far away. Because there are stars that are really close to us that we can't see with the naked eye. But there are stars millions and millions and millions of light years away that we can see because they're so big. It's the echo through time. So too, the same thing will happen to you. Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be the most famous person in the world. It just means that you will be remembered by the people who encounter you. Because you will be a source of truth that they have not seen before. And most people will misunderstand you, and they'll misjudge you. You also have to be okay with that. You have to realize that people living from ego are like children who don't know the ways of the adult. The adults understand the world and how to act in it. The children are just still figuring things out. And again, it's not saying that some people are better than others. It's just that saying that some people are more aware. Children aren't aware. They don't know anything. And so the more you're living from ego, the more you're living from ignorance, the more you're living in darkness. And the less the ego is ruling your life, the more you are immersed in truth. And once you're immersed in that truth, you rely within yourself. Nobody else. Can you ask someone else for advice? Yeah, of course. But at the end of the day, no matter what, even watching these videos, you will trust your own inner guidance over everything else. And that is how you know you're on a great path. Just don't get too prideful and think that you know it all. You know you have found the way when you realize there is no way. When the path disappears. Once you realize the stronghold that survival has over the human race, you will understand who to listen to and who not to listen to. And it becomes obvious those who are stuck in that prison box. And it's called having a dead fish in your pocket. Because again, the information that you got going on, if you're living from ego, every word that you speak will be influenced by this. So you know, when people are living from ego, when you get this kind of repulsive feeling, the ego says, yes, this is the truth and this is what I think and I think the truth and I'm right. And the moment you get a whiff of that, you can just say, oh, well, you don't get it. You just don't know. It's not your fault. It's just that you're ignorant, like the rest of us, trying to figure it all out. So you don't necessarily have to judge them and say, hey, you're stupid. You don't know anything. You just, like an ignorant child, you just kind of say, you'll get there. Because so long as you're attached to your mind stuff, to your beliefs, to your stories, you will never see the life clearly. On this spiritual journey, there are phases. There are phases when you rely on the frameworks and the systems, and there is a phase at the end where you let it all go. So I like to say, you can't bring your Bible to heaven. It's too heavy. Meaning you got to stop relying on external sources for your wisdom. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go learn about these different beliefs and the different frameworks and the different systems. It means that you're not attached to them. You don't have this identity about being this kind of person or being that kind of person. You just are. If you want to be the embodiment of the truth, just be. Don't be something. Don't be something else on top of that. God, if anything, is the ultimate truth. And if you want to be tapped into the ultimate truth, you have to take the truth where you find it. And you cannot find the whole truth if you're attached to one relative truth. Like, this is the only way, and everyone else is wrong. Again, you see that with religious people. My religion is the right religion, your religion is the wrong one. And I'll fight you to death if I have to. It's just monkey business, that's all it is. It has nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with truth. It has to do with feeling safe in your understanding of the world. That is how you can tell the hypocrites from those who truly love God. Because the people who love God will be with God. The ego will waste time arguing and debating with others about what is true or what is not true, or about the data or the evidence, or this is what this says and you're wrong. The more you argue and debate about religion, the more you're just concerned with your own ego desires of being I'm right and you're wrong. Conflict, argumentation has nothing to do with God or the truth. It has to do with being right. Once you get a whiff of that, stop interacting with the person. Because their mission is to not change, but to get you to change. And anything that comes into conflict with that narrative, they will not see it. So you will be ineffective if you're trying to change their mind about anything. That is why you come to the situation with no expectations. Because if you have no expectations, there is no mind noise waiting to be expressed. There is just pure receiving of reality as it is. Now you can act in better ways because you're dealing with more accurate information, and your life improves. Whereas people who live from ego, their life is going up and down and up and down and up and down. Why? Because the ego has an infinite array of different desires and different things it wants to avoid. And because life is changing, because of that attachment to identity, you will get pulled all over the place as things change. You will strongly desire in the absence of what you want. And you'll be sorrowful and sad. But in this moment, when you can become nobody, no thing, there is no pull by your changing thoughts and changing experiences. You learn how to ride the waves of life instead of resisting them, instead of trying to swim upstream and trying to get away, trying to force life, trying to control the river. It doesn't work. If you want to tap into the highest spirituality and experience true peace, you must become free from your mind prison. Because it is only your mind that takes you away from your natural birthright, that is peace. Peace is freely given to you. You don't need anything to be at peace, but you always need something to take away your peace. And that something is always the same. It's mind stuff. And if you can come to this realization, and you can stop identifying with your mind stuff, you will see just how clearly everyone is a slave. The only thing that matters is for you to become free. Like if you're busy trying to convince other people of what you believe, what are you doing? Wasting your time. There's the opportunity cost. The truly godly people who are truly spiritual, most of their time will be spent in devotion, intimacy with God, and that is it. And those who are the hypocrites will spend their time speaking about God and religion. Now, I believe that anyone who speaks about God is a hypocrite, even me, because God is fundamentally beyond words. You can't put God in a box. God is the unlimited, which again is why the frameworks will only lead you so far. It's like imagine religion as a car, a vehicle to get you to God. And on this journey, as you drive the vehicle toward God, the mountain of God, eventually you come across a river. And to get across that river, you have to let go of the vehicle. So there's a point at the spiritual journey where you have to give it all up. You have to let go. You have to let go of your attachments to your religious beliefs, to your frameworks, and certainly to the beliefs and frameworks that other people are living from. You got to let go of that vehicle, because that last part of the journey, it's just you being naked, walking toward God. And being naked means being empty. But before that, it's like, oh, I'm so happy being a religious or spiritual person. I'm doing all these things. I'm doing all the good things. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. I'm a good boy or a good girl. Making my way downtown. And as you mature on this journey, you just ground yourself deeper and deeper into silence. You lose the need for words, because you realize the words and the thoughts separate you from God. They separate you from the truth. Do we need them? Yes. Words are how I can express to you the truth. But words and thoughts and philosophy, concepts, they're only necessary so long as you're attached to your identification with the ego. It's the ego on the spiritual journey trying to find peace, trying to find God, whatever. But once you realize the ego is the one getting in the way, then the need for these concepts and ideas and frameworks and systems, mind stuff, it becomes irrelevant. Not only does it become irrelevant, it becomes a hindrance. So religion, what it does, and these frameworks and these philosophies, it takes people who are in these negative, low states of consciousness and helps bring them up to rise to higher states of consciousness. But if religion is right here, it can only bring you that far. So what is required to go that next step? The only thing is direct communion with God. That's the only thing. And direct communion with God can only be experienced. It can't be thought about. It can't be spoken about. So the more you find yourself speaking about it, the less you are aligned with the truth. Now, it's my job to speak like this, so it's a necessary evil. But if I wanted to speak the truth, I would just, cut my tongue out. And never speak again. Because the ultimate truth is found in silence. It's found in emptiness. Be still and know that I am God. So be still. Whereas the ego and the chaos of the mind, it's just a big storm, not stillness. And that is why we don't experience God. We're too busy focusing on the noise of the world, the noise of our mind. For those who look at the world, they do not see God. And those who look at God, they do not see the world. And that is how you know who to trust, fundamentally. If you just want to live and be a better ego, then you can listen to anybody. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if you want to find the ultimate truth and find true liberation from suffering, true connection to God, you have to listen to people who do not see the world, who do not see the illusion. Because if you're a person trying to convince me, a person, of something, I already know you don't know. I know within a second of meeting you what your level of consciousness is at. And I have never met someone who is free. Not yet. It's a lonely journey. But it's worth it. It's like you and God share this secret knowledge together, like nobody else is aware of. You see, you will be as successful as the individuals you value. Meaning, do you listen to people who are very worldly and egoic and are always talking about temporary pleasures? You're listening to rap music. If you value those things, you will only go as far as that, which is not very far. But if you listen to the great masters of the world, the quality of your life will reflect that instead. So be very careful who you listen to. And so you might ask, well, am I worth listening to? Well, you've already made that decision for yourself. I imagine one of the reasons people like listening to me is because I take the pressure away from you. When you listen to these things, you might feel a little bit of relief. Because I'm not telling you, you have to live this way. And if you don't live this way, you're not living right. You're not living the right way. You're not doing things right. And what I'm saying is that all of that psychological burden is unnecessary. And if you want to be free, you have to be free from that psychological burden, because that's the only prison in existence. It's your own mind. Your mind is the matrix. So because of your mind, it causes you to perceive reality in a certain way that is false, that is an illusion. And the whole movie, The Matrix, is about awakening from that illusion, which is what I've been talking about the whole time. You are not an ego, you are not a person. The ego is an imaginary construct. How do we know it's an imaginary construct? Because if you try to find it, it does not exist. The person you believe yourself to be does not exist. It is assumed. That is why, people don't even know who they are. So how can they be trusted? When you listen to people, you will feel the amount of truth that they are embodying. And it doesn't mean you have to get rid of the ego to embody the truth. It just means you have to kind of not be so attached to it. To not be so certain that life is this way or life is that way. But just to be empty and open to receive. Because if you really want to be the most logical, if you really want to make the best decision possible, you need the most accurate information. And you cannot receive accurate information if your mind is corrupting it. That is the whole purpose of science. You got to get the subjective one out of the way. Which means you stop filtering reality through these different systems and framework, and you just remain empty in the present moment. Therefore, when you speak, the truth effortlessly flows from you. And in this state, there is everlasting peace. So this is what you want to do. You recognize that there is this spectrum. There's a spectrum from the world to God. The more you go to this side of the equation, the more you exist in separation. And the more you are over here, the more you exist in unity. So the reason why those who look at the world do not see God is because those who look at the world see the separate individual forms. So the more you see God in everything, the more you are aligned with the truth. And the less you see God, the more you are aligned with ignorance. For example, somebody is, being mean to you, and so you say, this person did this thing to me. This person, them, me, ego, separation, duality, other, us, them, enemies, conflict. All of that is worldly nonsense that keeps you from the truth. But the more you see God everywhere, now you're starting to get it. And that's the funniest thing about religious hypocrites. It's very easy to love Jesus. It's very easy to see Christ in Jesus. But on one hand, we praise the Lord. And then on the other hand, we shun the Lord. Because you see Christ in Jesus, you don't see Christ in the Buddha. You don't see Christ in Krishna. In fact, you might say, well, those religions are wrong. My religion is right. Mine. Me. I'm right. You're wrong. And this is why you're wrong, and here's the evidence that supports why I'm right and you're wrong. It's like, Lord, Lord, we love you. And then in the next moment, you're spitting at his feet in disgust. That is why Christ said, a lot of people are going to come to me and say, Lord, Lord, we praised you and stuff like that. And he's going to say, well, no, you never knew me. Why? It's because if you truly love someone, you know them, regardless of the specific form that they take. You can see Christ in the grocery clerk, and you can see Christ in Jesus, and everywhere in between. And if you can't, it means you don't know. If you can't see God in that homeless pooping person, you just aren't clear. You're not rooted in the truth. If you're so busy beating other people's religions down and saying how wrong they are, you're not aware of the truth. You're not tapped in. Because people who are tapped into truth don't care about people's silly little beliefs. They don't mean anything. That is why people who say there is only one way are the greatest fools. Because you do not see that God has created many ways. Therefore, you do not know God and God's creation, God's reality. Because if you knew God, you would see God in all religions. You would see truth in all spiritual beings. And you would not just be so selfish and think that your way is the only way. That's ego, not truth. The more you see God everywhere, the more you know God. The point is, don't get so caught up on this side of the equation. Everyone is living over here from ego. Even when they follow God, God is like a tool for them to achieve their worldly desires. Or God is a means to an end. And there's so much confusion, there's just so much stuff, so much to believe, so much information, so much knowledge. And it's all, generally speaking, irrelevant. Why, you might ask? Because the truth is simple. There are very few things that we have to understand in this life. And there's an infinite amount of things for us to know. The more complicated you are, the more you have these elaborate philosophical ideas and these conditions about what is true and what is not true and what you have to do and what you have to follow, you can know that all of this is not the truth. Because the truth is always simple. So the more complicated you are, the more you're separated from truth. Now, is the truth complicated sometimes? It can be in its details and specifics. But the ultimate truths are always fundamental and simple and clear and straightforward. As Muji once said, the truth is simple, but the seeker is complicated. The more simple everything is, the more you can assure yourself that you're approaching the truth. That's why you see with religious people sometimes, it's kind of weird. It's like, wait, what is all this complicated stuff that you're throwing out at the world? The more you waste your time in the world of 10,000 things, mucking about, the longer you will stay separate from peace. Because the world mostly is noise. 99% noise, 1% truth. So, for all intents and purposes, you can ignore 99% of everything you know and just focus on the 1% that is true. The 1% that matters. And the more you value stuff and noise and distractions, the more the quality of your life will reflect those things. And the more you value the highest, the more the quality of your life will reflect that. You will be the embodiment of truth. You will be the embodiment of peace. And because you are at peace, you can share that peace with others. If you have found God, you can share that path with others. But if God to you is just a philosophical concept, you know nothing. And that's what people do all the time. They speak without experience. They just say, this is what I read, and this is what I believe to be true. This is what the Holy Book says, so I'm going to believe it. But it's ungrounded because they don't have roots in experience. It's like a business teacher talking to people about business who has never had a business. It's just philosophy, just intellectual rigmarole. Doesn't mean anything. And all we want to do is just begin recognizing the patterns of this, the ego, the world of separation. It's like eating food. What food is going to be nutritious? And what food is like candy? Or even just garbage? You got to recognize that you do not want to consume garbage, especially not other people's garbage, and you want to eat the nutritious food. Your mind is consuming things. So what is the quality of the things you consume? We just want to stop consuming things from ego because it's just going to lead us astray. We stop listening to people who are attached to their identification with the ego because they are living in an illusion. They don't know who they are. Again, doesn't mean you can't take their advice. It just means that, well, you take it with a grain of salt. And instead you start listening to the few people who have been born on this earth who have become free because they can lead you to the promised land while everyone else is the blind leading the blind. It will save you years of peace in realizing that 99% of everything is a distraction. And that's good news because you don't have to think anymore about what do I listen to or what do I not listen to. Most of it is noise. So you can ignore almost everything. That 99% of things is what steals your peace. And once you drop those burdens, peace naturally arises. When you stop arguing with other egos about their nonsense, about their beliefs, about their opinions, you keep your peace because you're not engaging and getting entangled with this nonsense. Doesn't mean you can't reflect and have debates and talk to people about things. It means you're not attached to the one who is having those debates. You're not coming from the perspective of, okay, this is what I believe, and if that is what you believe, we're going to have a fight or a conflict or a debate or something. Like you take it really serious, like this is who I am. And you see that's what the ego does. The ego takes itself seriously because, well, it's like a midget driving a lifted pickup truck. The midget is insecure, so it needs this big truck to feel like it's big. And that's the ego. The ego is always inflating its own self-importance about how much my opinions and my beliefs matter. My voice matters. What I think matters. So we try to impose our beliefs and our thoughts upon other people. But once you realize that's what's going on, you stop falling a slave to other egos who are doing that to you. Whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, whether it's the world, society, doesn't matter. You stop allowing the ego to influence you at all. You transcend the ego in yourself, and therefore you transcend the ego in others. Because until you tap into the truth within you, you will not know the truth when you hear it. You may get glimpses of the truth, but you might not know what is ignorance or what is truth. But once you tap into the truth within yourself, you know the truth when you hear it. It's the only way to know the truth. You can read your holy text, you can read any work by anybody and get a feel of like, okay, this feels like it's the truth. And then you hear something, it's like, that doesn't feel like it's the truth. That feels like it's coming from ego. You gain the power of discernment. So you stop tolerating the nonsense of life. And you begin to hyper-focus on only the things that matter. When you look at God and you do not see the world, it's just you and God going through your experiences together. So there's no longer this idea of sin and doing the wrong things and trying really hard to be spiritual. No, it's just that you see that God is shaping you like a master craftsman, and whatever you think you have to do with it, well, it's not completely accurate. It's like you engage in some self-destructive behavior. Oh, I'm such a bad person. But eventually, when you tap into the truth within yourself, you realize, oh, wait a minute, it was just God causing me to engage in this self-destructive behavior. And you might say, well, no, it's the devil. He's the bad. He's the demons. He's not good. Again, stuck in separation. So I don't talk about demons or the devil. I talk about the monster mind, but until you realize that there is no power on earth that does not get its authority from God, then you will be lost in this separation. You will be lost, and you will believe the power of the demons, that they're going to get you and squeeze your butt. Like the moment you hear someone talk about the enemy is here, they're nigh. It's the end of the world. The signs, prophecies. It's all just psychological drama. And you can take a few steps back to avoid getting pulled into this worldly of 10,000 things. So the point of this is to avoid getting entangled with people's garbage, with their beliefs and their opinions about the way that life is or whatever. And it's also about learning to break free from your own garbage. You begin to see how we enslave ourselves to our thoughts by entertaining the stories in our mind. Like, this is what is happening. We're immersed in a story. We're living that story. We're living that narrative. This is who I am and this is what I'm doing in my life right now. But once you realize it's just a story in your imagination, from your sense data and your interpretation of that data, you can break free from the story. And therefore your circumstances and your thoughts have no power over you ever again. Because you see through their illusion. You see that they're just thoughts, believed in. And once you see that, there is great relief. Because you can have negative thoughts all day, but they don't mean anything anymore. You're not getting pulled around by them because you don't identify with them. Your negative thoughts and your thoughts in general are always relative to the ego, to the personal identity. It is only because we identify with the ego do our thoughts have any power over us at all. So too are experiences. You must recognize the nonsense if you want to be free from it. You must recognize the psychological drama in yourself and in others. You have to become familiar with the ego and its ways and how it enslaves us if we're not careful. After you've been consuming all of this knowledge and all of this information, you realize, oh, wait a minute. There's too much. There's too much information. I don't need to consume any more information. I need to get rid of the information that's not serving me. I need to get rid of the ideas and the stories that are ruining my life. You want to become free from your attachments to these stories. Otherwise, they'll keep pulling you all over the place. You see, the ego is like a dark cloud that covers up the light and the warmth of the sun. The Son of God. The eternal sun within you. And that eternal sun radiates peace, love, joy, and abundance. That is your natural inner radiance. But it's the ego, it's the mind stuff, it's our psychological drama that prevents us from recognizing the peace, joy, love, and abundance that is already present in our lives. That is always present. And this is why pride is called the cardinal sin. Because if you are prideful, you will not have the humility to surrender yourself. That is what pride means. And it is only in surrendering yourself can you tap into these inner riches. The water that Jesus talked about, that of which you will never thirst again. It's right here. It's within you. But you will not see it so long as you're attached to your ego. So you gotta not necessarily make the ego a villain. It's just you have to realize what it's doing. You have to realize that it's preventing you from everything you've ever desired. You have to realize that it is the inner silence and the inner stillness and the inner peace, the inner presence. That is what you want. And once you taste that freedom, the ego loses all its power over you. Over time. Like when you pull the plug to a fan, it still keeps rotating for a little bit. And how many people do you think could believe that peace, love, joy, and abundance was the default state? That you're already in heaven. You're only dreaming that you're not. You are already one with God. There is no separation. And because we believe in separation, we are separate from the truth. That is unity. So it's a process of continuously removing identification with the mind stuff, with your ego. And the ego begins to dissolve on its own as you stop feeding it, because it can only feed on your energy. So that's all that's needed. You don't need to destroy the ego or fight it. You just need to realize that it's not you. And the more you become empty, the more you become rooted in the present moment, the deeper and more powerful this peace, love, joy, and abundance will become. And you just keep ripening and ripening and ripening. It's like Muji also said, it's like you become a tasty fruit that gets sweeter every day, but never too sweet. So don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about what other people are telling you to do. You got to tap into your own inner guidance. You got to tap into the truth within yourself, or else you'll always be a slave. And you won't know the truth when you see it, which makes it easy for people to lead you astray. You gain the power of discernment to discern truth from ignorance. And once you stop entertaining ignorance, you're well on your way to being perfectly at peace all the time. Now, if you find yourself struggling with your negative thoughts, I encourage you to check out Monster Mind Mastery. I took what helped me to become free, put it in a 90-day step-by-step system just for you. Much peace and many blessings, and remember, just be.